Today's video is about verbs, meaning we add the affix which could be an infix or a prefix to the verb roots. Hi, I'm Christine. Welcome to my channel, Learn to Speak Filipino. In order for me to explain more clearly, I'd like to use the board as I form the verbs to express the different tenses in this lesson. I'd like you to stay with me until the end of the video because I'm going to give you tips on how to master your verbs. So let's begin. Why do we call them verbs? Okay. Because these kinds of verbs change into the past form or the present form, the progressive or future form, okay, by adding the affix Okay, now, one of the nuances of Filipino, one of the reasons why Filipino is unique is because we not only add a prefix before the root verb, or we not only add the prefix at the end of the root verb as a suffix, but we also have an infix wherein we add the affix, or we add whatever syllable or letter in the middle of the verb root. Now, to illustrate that, let us think about first as an infix. Okay, so if is an infix, where would it be? It would be in the middle of the verb root. So you don't add it before the verb root, you don't as a prefix, or you don't add it at the end of the verb root, but you break or syllabicate the verb root and add it somewhere. Okay, so what's the rule? First, we have to remember that for to become an infix, the verb root must begin with a consonant. For example, you say kain. Do you remember kain? Kain means eat. So kain begins with the verb root kain begins with a consonant. So, for example, you say bili. Do you remember the word bili? Bili is a verb root and it means to buy. Okay, so again, kain means to eat and bili means to buy. I gave this as examples because becomes an infix when the verb root begins with a consonant. In these examples, the verb root kain begins with K and the verb root bili begins with B. Now, when becomes a prefix, meaning we add before the root, okay, when the verb root begins with a vowel. So, for example, the word alis. Okay, alis means leave or to leave. Alis. Okay? This verb root begins with a vowel or the vowel A. Okay. Now, another example could be a verb root that begins with a vowel is inom. Okay, do you remember the word inom? Inom means drink, or inom means to drink. Notice that inom also begins with a vowel. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to form, okay, these examples, okay, in the different tenses or aspects of completion, like perfected or completed action, incomplete like present or everyday action, ongoing, and contemplative action, which is in English, is the future tense, we will form these example verbs, okay, verb roots, using as an infix and using as a prefix. Okay? So let's begin first with using as an infix. Now, using these two examples of verb roots beginning with consonants, remember, becomes an infix when the verb root begins with a consonant. All right. So what do we do first? To make it easier, okay, let's try to understand the basic rule for is always placed before the first vowel. Right? Is always placed before the first vowel. Okay? So, when you put as an infix, you have to remember or to look for the first vowel. How do you do that? You syllabicate or you break the word. So, for example, let's do kain. Okay? Let us break or syllabicate kain. Okay? So, ka and then in. Okay? So, you now have two syllables, or you broke the verb root kain into two syllables, ka and in. Let's go back to the rule. Okay? Is always placed before the first vowel. In this case, the first vowel is the vowel A. Okay? So, kain, when we syllabicated kain, it became kain, and the rule says we put before the first vowel. So, further, we break the first vowel, we break the first syllable. We break the first syllable ka, okay, so that we would be able to put before the first vowel. Okay, so then, from this kain, which begins with a consonant, then was inserted in the middle or in between the first syllable. Before then, because the rule says you put before the first syllable. So then, the first syllable adding becomes kUMa. Okay? And then, you add the remaining syllable of the verb root, which is in. So, kUMain. This is now your base form or infinitive. Okay? Let us move on to understand the rule again. The rule says, should be placed before the first vowel. Alright? So, let us syllabicate bili. It becomes bi and then li. Rule says, put before the first vowel. So, the first vowel is I in the first syllable, B. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is, I will put before the first vowel, which is in the first syllable. Okay? So, B, I inserted Now, it's an infix. Okay? And then, I am going to attach the second syllable or the rest of the syllables in the root. So, the base form, okay, or the infinitive of the verb bili becomes bUMili. Okay, one point before I move on. In this case, when the verbs are verbs, okay, the infinitive form or the base form is the same as, so the base form and the past form are the same. Okay? So, this is the infinitive form or the base form. The rest of the changes to express the tenses, the different tenses, are based on the base form or the infinitive. This infinitive or the basis of all the other changes to express the tenses, okay, is also the past tense. So when you say kUMain, it means to eat, and it also means ate. So kUMain is to eat, and it is also ate. The same way, bUMili is your to buy, which is your infinitive or base form in Filipino, bUMili. And bUMili is also your past. It also means past, which is, bUMili means bought. Okay. So for verbs, your base form, the base form of verbs and their past forms are the same. So when you say kUMain, kUMain means to eat, and it also means ate. Right? kUMain means to eat, and kUMain means ate. Okay. Now, for bUMili, bUMili means to buy, this form. bUMili means to buy, and bUMili is also bought. It also means bought in English. Okay? So, I have shown you, all right, based on the rule that as an affix must always be placed before the first vowel. Okay? So here you will see it's not placed before the verb root or after the verb root. It is placed somewhere in the middle of the verb root, specifically before the first vowel. The first vowel is in the first syllable. Okay? So, verbs, okay? In verbs, if the verb root begins with a consonant like kain or bili, the affix is placed before the first vowel, which is in these words is located in the first syllable. Let's now move on to using as a prefix. Okay? Let's recall the examples I gave earlier, the verb roots as examples I gave earlier, and these were alis and inom. This time, becomes a prefix. When does become a prefix? When the verb roots begin with a vowel. Okay, so when we say the rule for forming verbs, okay, must be placed before the first vowel. Look at this. This example of verb root alis, okay, the first syllable, in the first syllable, okay, the first syllable is a vowel. Here in the example inom, okay, the first letter, which is also the first syllable, is also a vowel. So if I am going to follow the rule, okay, that says must be placed before the first vowel, in these examples, the verb roots began with a vowel. So I will make then your over here a prefix by following the rule that I should put it before the first vowel. Since this verb root begins with a vowel, I just put the before the first vowel and making it a prefix because I put before the whole verb root. The same thing, so this becomes UMalis. Can you pronounce it for me? UMalis. Now, I will do the same for inom, to drink. The first syllable, I, is also the first letter, which is a vowel. And the rule says I will put before the first vowel. The verb root inom begins with a vowel. So, here becomes a prefix because I put before the entire verb root, which is inom. So then, this is read as UMinom. UMinom. Okay. Like in as an infix, okay, for verbs, your past form and your base form or infinitive are the same. Okay? So when I say UMalis, this is the base form, UMalis, okay, which means to leave. Okay. UMalis is also my past form, okay, UMalis, which in English means left. The past form of leave is left. Okay, now, for UMinom, okay, UMinom is also your base form, meaning the rest of the changes will be based on UMinom, okay, which means, in English, it means to drink. Now, when you say UMinom, to drink, it is also the past form, or it also means drank in English. So, your base form and your past form for verbs are the same. So, UMinom, which is to drink as base form, is also drank. It also means drank in English. Okay, so 2 points here. Number 1, the verb roots began with vowels. So, was attached as a prefix because the rule says you have to put before the first vowel. These words, verb roots, began with vowels. So you put before, as a prefix, before the whole root. So UMalis and UMinom. That's the first point. The second point is, for verbs, the base form, or the basis of all the changes of the words, of the verbs, to express the different tenses, is the same as the past form, okay, which is completed action. So, in this example, UMalis is the base form. It means to leave in English, and it also means left, the past form of leave in English. The same way for UMinom, okay, which is the base form, to drink, and it also means drank, the past form of drink in English. Let us now form the progressive ing, ongoing action, and the habitual or present tense everyday action of the examples I gave, kain and bili. So first, kain becomes kUMain, So this one is now your past form. So it means ate. Now, how do we form now the eating? Okay, the form of eating, or how do we form eats? So what we're going to do is we will follow the same rule that we will put the okay, before the first vowel. All right. This time, to form eats or eating, you will have to copy or attach the whole root. The root of kUMain is kain. Okay? So to form the everyday habitual action or routine, or to form the ing form or progressive, you have to do or retain the before the first vowel in the first syllable here, and then you copy the whole root. Kumakain. Can you pronounce it for me? Kumakain. Okay? Kumakain, I retain in the base form, I put the before the first vowel in the first syllable, and then I copied the whole root. So, kumakain now is in English means eats or eating, the ing form. So, if the base form and the past form for verbs are the same, okay, generally speaking, in Filipino, for all verbs, the everyday action and the ongoing action both have the same form, okay, in all kinds of verbs. So now, when you say kumakain, it means eats or eating. Let's recall now our other example, which is bili. Okay. The past form of bili is bUMili. This is also your infinitive. So this is your bought. Okay? It is also your to buy. So following the same rule, we put before the first vowel, okay, which is in the first syllable. So in the first syllable, we inserted That's why it's an infix here. Okay, so bUMi. And then, again, we copy the whole root. So, bUMibili. This bUMibili means eat, means buys or buying. So, bUMili is your past. bUMibili is your ongoing action, or it is your everyday action or S form. So you say bUMili for past, as in bought, and bUMibili means buys or buying in English. Now let's form the present everyday action form or the ongoing action ing form of those verbs with used as a prefix, meaning it was placed before the entire verb root. So let's recall our example, alis. So the past form is UMalis. Okay? The past form is UMalis. That means left. Okay? So when you say UMalis, okay, here the prefix is added before the whole root. Now, how do we form the present everyday action and the present progressive? What we do is we retain the And then we repeat the first syllable of the verb root. What is the first syllable of the verb root? It is a. Okay, so and then the first syllable of the verb root, and then we attach the whole root. So the present everyday action and the ongoing action of the verb alis is UMalis. Okay, let's pronounce it again. UMalis. UMalis. Okay. UMalis, meaning in English, leaves, or the ing form, leaving. Okay. UMalis means leaves or leaving. UMalis means left. Okay, UMalis means left or the past, in the past form. Okay, so how about inom? Okay. How about our example, inom? Okay. Again, because the verb root begins with a vowel, we put the before the first vowel. Okay, and in the process, we put as a prefix before the whole verb root. So, UMinom is drank in English. So, how do we form, okay, how do we form drinks or drinking in Filipino? So, using again, all right, as a prefix, and then we copy the first syllable, which is I. Okay, so from umi, okay, which we used also in the past, but this time, after the first syllable of the root, we attach the whole root. So, UMinom, drinks, or drinking in English. Okay, so your everyday action or present and your ongoing action or progressive both have the same form in Filipino. So again, for your verbs, the base form and the past form are the same. Also, generally in all Filipino verbs, the present, everyday action, and the ing form, progressive, they are both in one form. And in this example, UMinom. So now, let's move on to forming the future, or in Filipino, that is the contemplative aspect, okay? So future form. How do we form the future of the verbs? We don't put We remove the Oh, really? Yes. So you have UMalis and UMalis. And then you have UMinom and UMinom. Now we remove the So you say kUMain and kUMakain. Then for your future, remove the Okay, now for you see bili, bUMili, and bUMibili. How do we form the future? We remove. For verbs, we remove the Okay, so how do I make it easier? Let's go back to the root and let's syllabicate them. So let's do first your verb roots that begin with consonants. So you say kain and you say bili. Okay? Again, even if they're verbs, the rule says for verbs, you remove the when you form the future. So how do we do this? Let's recall syllabicating them. The root, ka, and then in. Okay? So how about bili? Bili. All right. I said delete the remove the So what you're going to do is just copy the first syllable. What's the first syllable? Ka, right? So I copied ka, and then I attach the whole root. Yeah, that's how to do it. Ka, the first syllable, and then you attach the whole root. Kakain, will eat. Now, for bili, what do I do? If you answered, I copy first B, then you're correct. So I copy the first syllable B, okay? And then I attach the whole root. Bili. Okay? So, kakain, this is your will eat rather, sorry. This one is your will eat, and bibili is your will buy. See? Remove the root. Remove the okay, and then you just use the whole root. Okay? Remove the no more for the future. So how about if the verb root begins with a vowel? The same thing. So the verb roots that we used, alis and inom. Right? So let's say labicate. In Filipino, a vowel could be one syllable. A and then lis. Inom is I and then nom. Okay? So what are we going to do? The same thing. Even if the first syllable is just a vowel and it's just one sound or one letter, you will still follow the rule of repeating that one. So again, copy the first syllable. What's the first syllable here? For alis, that is a. And then attach the whole root. Aalis. Aalis will leave. Okay. For inom, the first syllable is I. Okay? So even if it's just a vowel, that's your first syllable, I. And then repeat the first syllable, and then attach the whole root. Aalis, iinom. Okay? Aalis, iinom. This one, aalis, is your will leave. And iinom is will drink. So, for both verbs as prefix or infix, in the future form, you do not put the anymore. Okay? You remove the All you have to do is to use, in the beginning, to repeat the first syllable of the verb root, even if it is just a vowel. So, here, you have consonant and vowel, so you have ka. From kain, ka is the first syllable, repeat the first syllable, attach the whole root. Even if the first syllable is just a vowel, you repeat the first syllable, a, or the first syllable, I, and then you attach the whole root, alis, and the whole root, inom. So it becomes aalis, will leave, and iinom, will drink. Maraming salamat for staying with me up to the end of this lesson. Now, as I have promised, I am going to give you 2 tips on how to master your verbs. The first one is, watch out for my video wherein I would list the most common verbs